In this video, I'm going to teach you 5 Grant Green concepts that will completely transform your jazz improvisation. I'm not just going to show you licks. I'm going to show you how Grant Green takes standard jazz vocabulary and modifies it in brilliant ways that you can apply to your own playing right after this video. My name is Chase Maddox. I'm a professional guitarist for 20 years, and I teach nearly 200 people just like you inside Chase's Guitar Academy. Check the link in the description and stick around to the end to get the free PDF. So today we're going to cover 5 concepts, and each one will show you how Grant Green thinks about jazz improvisation differently than other players. Let's start with concept number 1, and this is based on the Honeysuckle Rose lick. If you're not familiar, this is a very famous jazz tune that comes from Fats Waller called Honeysuckle Rose, and it sounds like this. So that fragment gets used a ton in jazz language. Charlie Parker is famously known for using this lick on his solo on Donna Lee, and when he does it, he modifies it a little bit to sound like this. That way it fits over a 2-5-1 progression. Grant Green is also known for playing his own variation of this, which teaches us a way to add a lot more rhythm into our playing instead of always focusing on 8th note lines. So here's Grant Green's version over the same 2-5-1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'm playing this in a very specific spot using this C minor 7 voicing. And that's because this is the shape I want you guys to see all of these different variations, whether it's the Honeysuckle Rose lick by itself, Charlie Parker's variation, or Grant Green's variation. You need to see it in the context of that chord and how Grant Green just adds in this one chromaticism to start off his phrase, and especially these upbeats, right? He's starting on these upbeats. All those syncopated upbeats. It's so important to add more rhythm into your playing. Let's take a look at the same lick, but how Grant Green uses it now over a major 7 chord instead of a 2-5-1. So you can also use this phrase leading in, anticipating the next chord. So say we're going into a C major 7, we can find this voicing, which is an A minor 7, or also a C6, fits over C major. Grant Green plays this. 1, 2, 3, anticipate. So on that one, he still started the Honeysuckle Rose lick on that upbeat, but we don't get the rest of the syncopated idea from the 2-5-1. Instead, he just continues up through that scale. The important lesson here is that Grant Green takes established vocabulary and transforms it rhythmically. He's not just playing the notes, he's manipulating the timing to create a completely different feel using established vocabulary. You can do this with Honeysuckle Rose. If you know that lick, try to add in Grant Green's variation. Concept number 2 is the flat 9 to 3 approach, which I've shown in older videos. Most importantly, the one I call the most important 2-5-1 line. At its simplest, this is just the idea of going from the flat 9 of a chord down to the 3rd of the next chord. Grant Green uses this multiple times in his solo on What Is This Thing Called Love, like in this example on a minor 2-5. So in this example, we're starting on the flat 9 of that G7. The descent starts on that flat 9 until we get to the 3rd of G7. Flat 9, 3rd. From there, we can go into other ideas. In this case, he just ends on the 9th, actually. Kind of interesting. You can also use this approach when the flat 9 goes to the 3rd of the same chord, and then even when it goes to the 3rd of the new chord, like in this example. 3, 4. So in this example, we have that flat 9 of C7 going down to the 3rd of C7. So we're still on the C7. He goes back to that flat 9 of C7 and then ends on the 3rd of the new chord because it's going to F minor now, so we need to have the 3rd of that next chord. It's such an effective concept to use in your improvisation. The thing I want you to take away from this is that it's not about running a scale. It's about understanding these established ways of playing, like a descending scale, that describe the harmony. Flat 9 to 3 is one of the most important paths to practice that. Concept number 3 goes even further into Grant Green's approach to playing scales. Most of the time, when beginner players improvise by thinking of a scale for the chord, they randomly go up and down through the scale, hitting any and all note with no real structure or direction. And having direction is an incredibly important aspect of making your ideas sound musical. So here are some things that Grant does when playing scalar that gives his lines direction. Let's take a look at our first example. 1, 2, 3, 4. The first thing I want to point out is that it begins with using thirds to lead to the root of the chord. There's clear direction to that note, right? So we have all of those thirds, A flat to F, G to E, lead us right back to F. Then he plays up the scale, but stops at the fifth. This is a very common place to stop playing a scale and switch to another essential jazz pattern. He goes just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Way too many beginners and intermediate players even continue on to play to the 6th and the 7th of the scale when it's not really done nearly as much as you might think in real solos. So what's this essential jazz pattern that Grant switches to? Well, since he's on the 5th, he plays what I call essential jazz pattern number 3, which is a 1, 2, 3, 5 or 5, 3, 2, 1 pattern, and then ties off the phrase just by getting to the 3rd of the chord. So we're on the 5th, 5, 3, 2, 1. He plays a B flat to kind of get back to the A flat, 3rd of the chord. Let's look at another example. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here, Grant has an almost identical start to the phrase, playing the scale in thirds, getting to that root, and then adding in some tension with chromaticism between the 9th and the 11th. And then he descends the scale in alternating thirds from the 5th down to the root. So all of that kind of moving in the thirds, gets back to the root, and then from the 9th up to the 11th. And we'll see that later on. And then ending the idea, very similar rhythmic idea, and just continues more of this descending thirds. Speaking of moving thirds, let's take a look at one simple change that Grant uses to level up his major 7 arpeggios. Now, we all play major 7th arpeggios, and you're going to want to stick around for this one. Most people learn arpeggios by going just fully in one direction. Let's say we're looking at C major 7. Maybe you play C, E, G, B. There's nothing wrong with that, and it gets used all the time. Next, you might have learned that you can approach the start of that arpeggio by playing the major 7th first. Maybe even a different rhythm. Most people stop there. However, we want to have options and variety when playing arpeggios. And Grant Green came up with a very simple variation of the major 7th arpeggio that's super effective and a consistent part of his vocabulary. Here's that example. 3, 4, 1. So one key element of this phrase is that we're starting on the upbeat. This helps emphasize that major 7th and major 3rd on downbeats, which we generally want. So this idea is so simple. We start on the root, but on an upbeat. So 1 and 2 and 3 and. So on beats 2 and beats 3, we get that major 7th and 3rd. 3, 4, 1. And we end on the upbeat, so it drives it forward. Grant also uses this idea to help continue his line after he plays a 9th arpeggio, like in this example on B flat major 7. 3, 4. So over this B flat major 7, we're playing D minor 7 or a 9th arpeggio without the root, right? And then on an upbeat, it's the exact same major 7th idea that we had for C major 7, but just now on B flat. So start on the root, on the upbeat, down to the major 7th, back up, continue your arpeggio. And you can get a nice long major 7th idea with just 2 different arpeggios. ninth arpeggio, grand variation on a major seventh arpeggio. Let's take a look now at Grant's approach to using chromaticism, and it's so similar to the way George Benson thinks of chromaticism that I'm convinced he was influenced by it. So let's take a look at this example over C7 altered. 3, 4, 1, 2. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is that we start on the downbeat for this phrase, and it starts with a triplet. Grant is known for his great use of rhythm in his solos, and it's important that we internalize that aspect too, and not just his melodic and harmonic elements. Now, looking at the notes, we see he goes from the 5th to the flat 7 of C7. The 5th of C7 is G, and we go up to the B flat, which is the flat 7. We actually saw this earlier when we were looking at that idea over F minor for the scale approach. Grant does this all the time, and I think maybe you should too. And also what's interesting here is on the way back from that flat 9, he uses that same chromaticism from the flat 7 down to the 5th. To end the phrase, he just has to get to a target note for the next chord. In this case, he hits E because he's thinking of that chord as a C7, even though it's a minor 7 flat 5. In a different part of that same solo, he plays a similar phrase. However, because the chord goes to F minor next, he has to change the ending to get to a chord tone of F minor. In that example, he plays this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at one more example where he plays over G7, again, from that same solo. 1, 2. It's the exact same idea, starting on a downbeat with a triplet, going chromatically from the 5th to the flat 7. This is why I get so frustrated when I see teachers telling or implying that practicing scales is the way to improvisation. It's just not true. Grant isn't playing any scale here. It's a musical idea with a specific rhythm, starting point, and phrasing that he executes all as one thought. There is no thinking of a scale that happens when masters improvise. If you want the PDF for this lesson, check out a 7-day free trial of Chase's Guitar Academy at the link below. We just introduced a brand new membership tier to make this even more affordable for the retirees on a fixed budget, international members, and students working part-time. Inside Chase's Guitar Academy, I have a complete step-by-step curriculum called the Master Improvisation Blueprint, which takes you through learning each of the essential jazz patterns and how they combine to form real essential vocab, just like the ones we were going through in this lesson. You'll learn real language from your jazz guitar heroes and actually understand them and be able to use them over jazz chord progressions. I go through this with backing tracks, multiple keys. Come learn from me directly and join an awesome group of nearly 200 people just like you learning jazz guitar. If you enjoyed this lesson, definitely check out the one here, breaking down concepts from Wes Montgomery, or the other one, breaking down concepts from Joe Pass. See you in the next video. Click right here.